Sarah always said yes. Yes to overtime when she was exhausted. Yes to babysitting her sister's kids when she had plans. Yes to that friend who only called when they needed something. At 32, she had the perfect reputation. Helpful, reliable, never a problem for anyone. She also hadn't slept well in months. Couldn't remember the last time she did something she actually wanted to do, and felt like she was slowly disappearing. Sound familiar? What Sarah didn't know was that she was living out what the renowned psychologist Jung called the Great Deception, the belief that we can find ourselves by losing ourselves in others' expectations. Today, we're going to explore Jung's profound insight, why pleasing others is slowly destroying you, and why it isn't kindness. It's a form of psychological suicide. Let me tell you about a pattern that the great Swiss psychologist Carl Jung observed repeatedly in his clinical work. He encountered successful people who'd built their entire identities around being the good guy, donating to charity, never missing family gatherings, always helping colleagues with their projects. Everyone loved them. Yet many were having panic attacks in grocery stores and couldn't explain why. Jung also worked with individuals who'd spent decades being the perfect daughter, perfect spouse, perfect parent. They followed every rule, met every expectation, kept everyone happy. Then one day, sitting in their perfectly arranged lives, they realized they had no idea who they actually were beneath all those roles. Jung identified this pattern as what he termed the persona trap, one of the most dangerous psychological prisons we can build for ourselves. Through his extensive research and clinical observations, Jung discovered something that changed everything. The very thing we think is protecting us from rejection is actually guaranteeing our destruction. Jung's revolutionary insight still shocks people today. He discovered that when we constantly please others, we're not actually being good. We're being cowardly. We're so terrified of someone not liking us that we'll sacrifice our authentic selves on the altar of their approval. Think about it. When you say yes when you mean no, what are you really saying? You're saying, my authentic response isn't acceptable. My real feelings don't matter. I'll pretend to be whoever you need me to be because the real me might not be enough. Jung introduced the concept of the shadow, all the parts of us we've pushed down because they didn't fit what others wanted. Your shadow contains your real opinions, your actual boundaries, your genuine desires, even your righteous anger at being taken advantage of. But here's Jung's most terrifying discovery. What we don't acknowledge doesn't disappear. It goes underground. It festers. It starts controlling us in ways we don't even realize. Remember that businessman with panic attacks? His shadow was screaming at him through his body because his conscious mind refused to listen. That person, in the perfectly arranged life, their shadow had been whispering for decades. This isn't who you are, until one day it became a roar they couldn't ignore. Through his clinical observations, Jung noticed something that most people miss. Chronic people pleasers don't actually create better relationships. They create fake ones. When you're constantly performing instead of being authentic, people fall in love with your mask, not you. This creates a devastating cycle. You get praise and acceptance, but it feels hollow because you know it's not really for you. It's for the character you're playing. So you have to keep performing, keep pleasing, keep hiding your real self. The validation you're desperately seeking, becomes impossible to actually receive because you're not showing up as yourself to receive it. Jung documented cases of individuals who were beloved by everyone in their community. They were always helping, always available, always saying yes, but they confided that they felt like they were watching their lives from the outside, like actors who'd forgotten they were in a play. "I don't know if anyone would like the real me," they would say, "because I don't even know who that is anymore." This is what Jung termed living in the provisional, constantly postponing your real life while you manage everyone else's expectations. You tell yourself you'll be authentic later, after this project, after this favor, after you've proven you're worthy of love. But later never comes because the pattern has become your prison. The most heartbreaking part? Jung's research revealed that people pleasers often end up being taken advantage of by the very people whose approval they seek. When you don't value your own time, energy, and boundaries, you teach others not to value them either. Jung believed that the most important work of human life is what he called individuation, becoming who you actually are instead of who you think you should be. This isn't selfishness, it's a moral imperative. Here's why. When you abandon yourself to please others, you rob the world of your unique contribution. You rob your relationships of authentic connection. You rob your children of seeing what it looks like to be a whole person. You rob yourself of the only life you get to live. Jung argued that society needs individuals, not conformists. Innovation, creativity, progress, they all come from people brave enough to be themselves, even when it's uncomfortable for others. The very thing you think makes you difficult might actually be your gift to the world. He worked with an artist who'd spent years painting what he thought people wanted to see instead of what moved him. His technically perfect paintings sold well, but he felt dead inside. When he finally started painting his actual vision, strange, difficult, honest work, he lost some buyers, but found his soul. More importantly, his authentic work began touching people in ways his pleasant paintings never could. Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But becoming yourself requires something most people aren't willing to do: disappoint others when their expectations conflict with your authenticity." This might be the hardest truth Jung ever shared. You cannot live authentically without disappointing people. Some people have invested in you staying small, predictable, available. When you start showing up as yourself, some of them won't like it. Jung called this the necessary disappointment. He said that people who truly love you will adjust to your authenticity, even if it's initially uncomfortable. People who can't adjust were never really loving you anyway. They were loving their control over you. Let me share something Jung observed that changed how I think about relationships. Healthy people are attracted to authenticity, even when it's inconvenient. Unhealthy people are attracted to people pleasers because they can be controlled and manipulated. When you stop people pleasing, you'll lose some relationships. But Jung discovered something beautiful. The relationships you keep become real. When people choose to stay connected to the actual you, not the performed version, that's when love becomes possible. One of Jung's patients said it perfectly. "I used to have 50 friends who knew my mask and no one who knew my heart. Now, I have 5 friends who know my heart, and I've never felt less alone." Jung believed that one authentic relationship is worth more than 100 performed ones. When you show up as yourself, you give others permission to do the same. You create the kind of connection that actually nourishes the soul instead of depleting it. So what happened to Sarah, the woman from our opening? After months of panic attacks and insomnia, she finally understood what Jung meant when he said, "Your vision becomes clear when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens." She started small. She said no to one request per week. She expressed one genuine opinion in conversations where she used to just agree. She stopped apologizing for taking up space. At first, it felt terrifying. Some people weren't happy with the new boundaries, but something magical started happening. The friends who truly cared about her stepped up to support her growth. Her family began respecting her time more when she respected it herself. She slept better. She rediscovered interests she'd forgotten she had. She started feeling like herself again. Most importantly, Sarah realized that her people-pleasing hadn't actually been protecting anyone. It had been teaching people that her needs didn't matter, that she was endlessly available for use, that she didn't deserve the same consideration she gave others. Jung would have recognized Sarah's journey as individuation in action, the courageous process of becoming who you actually are instead of who you think others want you to be. Jung left us with a profound challenge. The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. But he also left us with a promise. When we do the work of becoming authentic, we don't just save ourselves, we model for others that it's possible to be real in a world that rewards pretending. Your authentic self isn't a luxury you can afford later. It's not something you owe others. It's something you owe yourself, and something the world needs from you right now. The question Jung would ask you is simple. Are you living your life, or are you living the life others expect from you? Because there's a profound difference, and that difference is everything. Stop pleasing others at the expense of yourself. The world doesn't need another people pleaser. It needs you, the real, complicated, authentic you. That person is worth fighting for.